Bole Baba Ki Jai. My name is Sondra Ray, and I'm talking here from Haidakhan, Babaji's home. The other day, someone came up to me and said, "What is the main thing that you learned from Babaji or that you got from Babaji?" And I've been coming for 40 some years. And wow, I thought that's a really good question. And the answer I gave is, well, number one, Babaji saved my life many times. He healed me of conditions I couldn't heal. He gave me a career I love, and he gave me the perfect mate for my marriage. And I got married here in Haidakhan, so he gave me everything, really. So that was my answer, and she was impressed. And so Babaji came to give, and you have to ask for what you want, and he will give it. Oh, well, first of all, I was raised in a traditional Lutheran church, and I became very disillusioned with that because, my father died when I was young, so I was angry at God, and I was kind of lost. And by a miracle, I got a message, which was to go to California. And I was a nurse at the time. And I didn't know anyone in California, and the Nurses Association said they didn't have any available jobs for 2 whole years. But I was sitting with a guy on the floor, and I was going to go back to my ex-husband because he wanted me to come back. And I heard a voice in the air, literally, and he heard it too, so I wasn't making it up. And the voice said, "Never go back. Go to California now." And I said, well, if I don't follow this voice, I'll regret it my whole life, And I wasn't really into much spirituality at the time, but I didn't know if God was speaking to me or who was speaking to me. So I followed the voice, and I went to California, and I started having nothing but miracles. In a short time, I got a job instantly, even though they said that the waiting list was 2 years. I started getting a job in a prenatal clinic in Kaiser Hospital. And I started going to seminars, and then I started having some car accidents, and I was crying one night in a seminar. And so these guys said, "What's wrong?" And I told them I was having these accidents, and they said, "Oh, there's this new guru in town. We'll take you to him." And his name was Leonard Orr, and he was the founder of Rebirthing Breathwork. So I was there right at the beginning by Babaji miracle of rebirthing breathwork, and it changed my life forever. And Babaji later said that rebirthing was the new Kriya Yoga. The old Kriya Yoga was too difficult for most people in the West. And the rebirthing that we do is a healing technique, is the new Kriya Yoga. So I became a rebirther, and this changed my whole life. And then I was running the office in San Francisco of the Rebirthing Center. And one day we got a strange letter in the mail. And it said, Leonard Orr, he was the founder of this breathwork. Leonard Orr, 301 Lyon Street, San Francisco. But there was no return address, and the letter was stamped India, but no town. And I thought, this is a strange letter. And so I opened it up. It was very strange paper, like from an old school, red schoolhouse. Printed in pencil was "Come to India." No signature. I said, Leonard, we've been called. We didn't know who was calling us. So a bunch of us original breath workers, we got together, and I think there was 10 of us, and we went with Leonard, and we went to India. We came here in search of a guru. And so Leonard said, let's all split up and go in different parts of India and try to find different gurus, and then we'll come back and we'll exchange ideas. So I went south, and I met Rajneesh and other people, and I knew that wasn't for me. So in 2 weeks, we all came back, and Leonard had met another guru named Abu, and we thought maybe he was the one, but we never found Babaji at that time. But one girl was missing. You can't find a missing person in India, right? We had to go home without her. So she didn't come home for 7 months. And after 7 months, she came in, and she came into the Rebirthing Center, and she said, I found the real Babaji. And we couldn't believe it. So we came right back to India. So we stopped in Delhi, and we didn't have any address for Babaji or anything. This was 1977. She said, oh, he's wandering around in the foothills, and we didn't even know where or anything. And then Leonard said, well, I'm going to go by myself alone. He said, you get your head together and join me in 3 days. Well, this other guru wanted me to be his disciple, and Leonard wanted me to go north with him, and I was very confused. I would make the wrong spiritual decision, and 3 days went by, and my mind was like glue, and I couldn't think. And then I started shouting, God, I demand to know my true spiritual path, and I demand to know tonight. And that night, I heard the arti in my dream, and I knew that was the right direction. So I got on an Indian bus, which was really packed, and I'm going to Haldwani, right? And I didn't have any address except somebody told me to find this saint named Muniraj. Well, okay, I didn't have an address. I thought it was going to be a little tiny village and I would find him. But, you know, Haldwani is a bustling city, so I didn't know where to find Muniraj. So for 4 hours, Babaji was testing me, you know, was I going to give up or not? But I asked people for 4 hours, do you know Muniraj? Do you know Muniraj? They all said no. The 4th hour, somebody said, oh, he has a different name here. His name is Trilak Singh. I said, okay, where is he? They said, down there in that feed store. And I thought, what's a saint doing in a feed store? So I knocked on the door, and this moment changed my life. There's only before this moment or after this moment. The door opened, and Muniraj was wearing white, and he was glowing like a really angel. And he went like this. He said, okay, you may go. And he sent me on the path to Haidakhan. Now, in those days, we didn't have the road like we have now. We had to hike through the riverbed, and it was really tough, and the river was rough, and we had to put our passports in plastic around our neck, and it was crazy. But anyway, I got here, and I was so excited. I ran up the 108 steps, and I ran right by Babaji because I didn't even see him. And somebody said, hey, you're supposed to pranam to the guru. I said, where is he? And they said, and you know, he was dressed just like a farmer because I was raised in Iowa, a little town, and all farmers. So he was wearing like a gunny sack, and he had straw hanging out of his mouth. And he said, oh, Mrs. Sondra. I couldn't believe he was my guru. I thought, oh, no, I expected my guru to be wearing satin robes and turbans and, you know. So anyway, I came up here, and in those days, we didn't have running water, nothing here. We had to carry pails of water up the steps, you know. It was really tough. Anyway, so my first night, I was really confused what to do, and we didn't know how to chant the arti or anything, you know. And then I found out that women can't go in the temple if they have their menstrual periods, and I was very upset, you know. I said, I was really upset by that, and I said, thank God I don't have that right now. But that moment, I started breakthrough bleeding. I thought, oh no! So I didn't know what to do. And anyway, I decided I would sit outside the temple. Then I wasn't breaking the rules. And then I could hear the music. So I'm sitting out there, and then Babaji's up there on his asan, you know, and he calls like this to me, you come in. I thought, wow, he's going to let me in. And I sat down, and he said, are you a man or a woman? I said, I'm a woman. Well, I was sitting with all the men. I didn't notice that the men were sitting separately, right? So he had me down to the memory of my birth in that second because my father wanted me to be a boy, right? So he was processing me immediately, even way down to my birth. So I went over to the men and sat with them. And then it was kind of cold, so I went up to him and I thought, I'm going to have self-esteem around Babaji, and I'm going to try to ask for what I want. So I went up and I said, can I please go to the fire temple because I'm kind of cold? So I go in this old fire temple. This is before we had the Duni we have now. And these old saints were in there chanting very heavy mantras. And one of them said, you sit here. And his name was Prem Baba. Now he's no longer with us. And he started singing to me and singing to me. And I thought, what is this? And he acted like I was the only woman in the world. And I said, what's he singing about? And they said, all he ever talks about is God, you know. And from then on, everything just unfolded. And I went to my room, and I couldn't sleep. I was in my sleeping bag, and I had this vision. This is my first night in Haidakhan. Babaji appeared to me floating in the air, and he had a baby's body with an old man's head, which was old Haidakhan Baba. Wow. So you can imagine, I'm having this vision. I'm seeing Babaji, and I knew he was in his quarters over there. Now he's appearing to me like a baby, floating in the air, and I'm freaking out. So I said to my roommates, do you see this? No, they couldn't see it at all. So the whole night I didn't sleep, my first night, and Babaji stayed there the whole night passing light to me. Light, light, light. And I couldn't sleep. And it was really intense, very intense. So I had to do my breathing. You know, I was very happy that I knew about rebirthing breath, because I started rebirthing myself just to handle this energy. And so the next morning we got up, and this is my first day really in Haidakhan, and he said, you give a speech. And you know, I had been a nurse. But you know, this is how he trained me to become a public speaker. He used to yell at me to give a spontaneous speech, and I was always very nervous. And he said, you give a speech, and he called me you for 3 days before I got a name. So that was my first day in Haidakhan, and he used to do that to me, make me give spontaneous speeches, and he actually trained me for my future because I'm a public speaker now, and I teach all over the world, and I write books, and you know, I'm a writer now, and I'm a teacher, and I have this very blessed, wonderful career from Babaji of being a rebirther, where I help people breathe and release their pain and their illnesses and their birth trauma and everything. And it's such a blessed career that Babaji gave me. So my husband and I do that together, and we travel all over the world teaching that. And so that was all what I told you just happened in one evening and one morning, my first time in Haidakhan. Well, if people aren't spiritual, then they're lost, and the problem is they get stuck in their ego, and their ego is their false self, and they have their anger, their fear, and their guilt. Those are the 3 things most people get stuck in, and it's in their unconscious, and they're not clearing it, so they create in their life a lot of dramas, a lot of upsets, a lot of problems in their body, a lot of problems in relationships. And you know, you can't go to a doctor and get those things fixed. You need a spiritual life to release your ego. You need a spiritual life to be happy. And so when I got this incredible spiritual life with Babaji, everything totally changed. Everything started working, and I got really blessed, and I was like a new person, I would say. Talk about a rebirth. I was like reborn as a new person. But if people don't have spirituality, they're going to be lost, and then they just have a waste. I call it a wasted incarnation. They're not doing any service work. They're just complaining. They're going to their job, which they don't like, and then they're miserable in their relationships. They're miserable in their bodies, and they're not getting any help. So I think a spiritual life is the most important thing for any person on the planet. Well, his main teaching was always truth, love, simplicity, and service to mankind. And he stressed service, which he calls karma yoga. So he said that if you want to have happiness, you have to have truth, love, simplicity, and service to mankind. That's called karma yoga. That's the main message that he always taught. Very simple message. But he also said you must do japa. You have to do Om Namah Shivaya as part of your spiritual practice. So you get these mala beads and you do 108 Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And he taught us that is the highest thought in the universe. So if you want to be good and you want to be happy and you want to have your life work, you have to do this kind of spiritual practice. So he kept saying truth, love, simplicity, service to mankind, and the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. That's what he recommends for everybody. And that's not hard to do that. You just have to decide that you are going to commit to that kind of life, you know, and help others, obviously. Help others and not be narcissistic. So Babaji's main teaching was quite easy and quite simple. He never said, oh, you have to meditate 5 hours a day. No. He said most people in the West don't even have the patience for meditation. But he said the breathing, especially in America, he said this rebirthing breath is the new Kriya Yoga, and this will help you clear yourself. And it's better than meditation because it's faster, and we don't have the patience to sit and meditate for 5 hours. So he never told me, oh, you have to sit and meditate for hours. He said, you need to do truth, simplicity, and love and service, and Om Namah Shivaya, and the breathing. That's his formula, and anybody can learn that. And I would recommend, if you want your whole life to be a miracle, you should come to Haidakhan, and especially if you come during Navaratri. Now, Navaratri is a 9-day festival here devoted to the Divine Mother. And it's so powerful, it changes you forever. Because what happens is all the yogis and saints and people here are doing these spiritual practices night and day here. And some of these ancient mantras they're doing are so powerful that it changes you. And then the fire ceremony is a miracle. We have a fire ceremony every day. And I tell my students, you take a coconut, you put whatever your problem is in this coconut and you throw it in the fire and have it burned up. And then everybody goes to the fire every day and releases all their karma and their problems and everything. And then we also offer head shaving, which really changed me, which we call moon done. And so I had, I think, 6 or 7 students that chose to get a moon done here. And I know the first time I shaved my head, my whole life totally changed. And Babaji said, if you get a moon done or a head shave here in Haidakhan along the Ganges River, then he will be responsible for your liberation. Now, where are you going to get that kind of thing, that kind of a miracle in ordinary life? Haidakhan is such an incredibly pure place that it changes your whole consciousness, and you never are the same. And, you know, it's fast. I've had students come here who have had problems for decades they couldn't get rid of. And when they got here, they got through it in a few days. You know, that's how magic this place is. And I myself had something come up for me during the pandemic, which was very difficult, and I couldn't clear it. The minute I got here, it cleared. That's how powerful Haidakhan is. So I would totally recommend you come. And for me, you can come anytime here, but I would recommend you especially come for Navaratri, which is in the spring here. And then it also goes on in the upper ashram, Chilianola, in the fall. So you have 2 choices for Navaratri. So I would recommend you try to come during Navaratri. But of course, you could come anytime. Bali Baba Ki Jai. I hope I've inspired you to choose a spiritual path with Babaji. And he's the master of the masters. So why not go to the top? And he says, my love is available. You can take it or not. So I say, why not? We need all the help we can get. Bali Baba Ki Jai.